Linda?
Nolene.
You're welcome to start.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for making the time for our first ever SkillsTrain webinar. Just a welcome and a few thank yous, and we'll be hearing about the exciting new developments that FLAIM has to offer. So stay with us. I'd especially like to thank the international team for fitting in. A big thank you to Australia and Team USA. Thank you to Etienne Dutoy from Disaster Management and Annelies Lamprecht from Witzenberg. Thank you for joining us. And a big thank you goes to Nolene and Team Ladybugs for making the webinar happen. My name is Linda Buerta, founder member of SkillsTrain Distribution and proud to be the master distributor for the FLAIM trainer in Southern Africa. We have worked and been involved with international global publishing houses for many, many years and have always been passionate about education, especially fire and EMS, which has been close to my heart. So hence the FLAIM Trainer Association was born out of a discussion with Marius Kukumur, agent for DALI USA, and myself pre to the pandemic, when we discussed the reality of this new technology and the impact it could have on our territory and how we could service the various market sectors and what would be the best way forward. This is when I started to explore FLAIM and was blown away by the state-of-the-art technology, leader in its field, the real-life scenarios, the fully immersive learning experience. It's safe, very real to the point of being scary and cost-effective. Constant updates. I believe VR is the future of training and learning, and I'm so excited to be able to share with you today in this interactive session. Let me not waste any more time and hand over to Marius, who, as I said, is the international agent for DALI USA, and he will be introducing the international panelists. Thank you very much.
Hi, Linda. Linda, thank you very much, and hi, everybody. My name is Marius Kukumur. I am the Africa sales representative for WS DALI and Company, like Linda said. I've been in the fire and rescue industry for the past 25 years, and during this time, my career has taken me many different directions, from sales of fire apparatus to the building of fire apparatus, pump sales and system engineering, and now also, of course, the robotics side of our equipment division. WS DALI and Company is a 113-year-old fourth-generation family-owned business with headquarters in Chicago, USA. I am pleased to introduce my teammates from the robotics division. They are in Chicago, and Kevin Sofen will do the necessary introductions. Thank you.
Hello all, can you hear me okay?
Perfect, thanks, Kevin.
Great. Well, my name is Kevin Sofen, and I lead the innovation division here at WS DALI and Company. And I have my fellow coworkers, Umen Hussein and Sean Pechapang, who are a lot of the brains behind the operations here at DALI with our technology. We've been working on different robotics and virtual reality training solutions now for going on 10 years at DALI. As Mary has said, we have a rich history in innovation, from pumps, trucks, equipment, and now VR training. A lot of advantages you'll hear about virtual reality like James Mullins will touch on, but from the environmental aspects, the health aspects, the cost aspects, a lot of different unique advantages that VR can bring to you from a training perspective that wasn't possible before. So we don't want to spend too much time talking about a lot of the intros here, but just know that we are your technology support team here in America to make sure that your virtual reality, particularly FLAIM systems, will work and do the job that it's supposed to do. And we'll now pass it over to James Mullins, who will give you a deeper dive into what is VR, and particularly what are the FLAIM trainer systems, as well as the extinguisher. James, over to you.
Thanks very much, Kevin and team, and welcome from Victoria, Australia. I guess a little bit of my background, I'm a third-generation firefighter myself. I grew up on a fire truck from a very young boy, went away to an engineering degree, and over the past 10 years or so have been developing the technology that became part of the FLAIM trainer that we'll be demonstrating today. Have we finished our introductions, Marius? Would you like me to jump into a presentation? Fantastic. Well, I'm just going to share my screen. So we'll get this one set up and we will get started. So thank you very much all for your time. It's great to see so many people on the call, and looks like from all over the world as well too, which is fantastic. I guess we started FLAIM Systems to develop multi-sensory immersive learning solutions for training in emergency and mission critical situations. So what that means, it's really leveraging on my passion and our team's passion for supporting emergency services. We do work in defence. I've worked in the Defence Forces training for 20 odd years now. And we talk about multi-sensory immersive learning, not just virtual reality. Virtual reality gives you the visuals. Immersive learning gives you the feel, the touch, the taste, the smell, the physical aspects. And we can also measure your biometric performance and really understand how you're behaving and how you're performing. We have a core approach to our learning improvement, and that's to improve the safety of our personnel. As both Linda and Marius were talking about before, it's about enabling people to train more often. That's the increase in the training frequency, but in a safer way as well. We want to improve the organisational culture. We want to be able to attract new and next generation of talent, be that volunteer or permanent firefighters. And we want to improve organisational compliance. I've been in the fire industry all my life, as I said, and quite often I see that we do a training iteration, but we don't capture the learnings. We don't really get a feel for how our team is training and how we can improve upon our training outcomes. I really don't want this to be death by PowerPoint, so please keep some questions coming in the chat window, and perhaps Linda, if you could read them out if we do get any questions come through during the presentation. I guess simulation is not new. I'm going to share this presentation with you all after, but I'm not going to go through it word by word. But we've been training in flight simulators since the 1920s. In fact, in 2021, the Air Force is predominantly using flight simulators to train their pilots. And I think while we may be a little way away from that in the firefighting domain, we see virtual immersive training environments as critical to the future of our industry, especially with, I guess, some of the limitations of training using traditional methods that create some fairly nasty byproducts that we're exposing our firefighters to. And, you know, I like to quote a few people, and Einstein's a great person to quote, and, you know, learning is experience. We've all learnt by sitting around a PowerPoint presentation like we are today, but until you get into a system like ours, you won't really appreciate the immersion that we can create. We can put people on roofs, we can put people in dangerous situations and see how they behave, and people will not bring themselves to step off a roof in a virtual environment, even if they know they're in a room with a flat floor. It's a really visceral experience. I'm going to flick through some of these, but all the big players in learning and in training are really saying that this is going to be the future of how we learn moving forwards. And as we said, we'll share this presentation later. So I spoke about it before. It's multi-sensory, it's immersive learning. It's translation from the classroom into doing before you do hot fire training. We're not trying to say that we're going to replace hot fire, traditional firefighter training, but this is a tool in the toolbox. As I mentioned before, this came out of a university, 10,000 hours, well over 10,000 hours of development now, really understanding the cognitive learning and the replication of the training aspects that we do on the hot fire training ground, but basically putting it in a box, enabling you to take this training to your people rather than bringing people to hot fire training grounds. 4 main reasons we do this: health and safety, economic, it's got to be very, very cost effective. Obviously, the environmental impact is huge. We're charging up a battery every few hours. We're not releasing carcinogens into the atmosphere. We're not causing angst to the public by pushing black smoke into the air. We're not exposing our people to risk. And we're taking that accessibility problem away. Instead of traveling, as I said, to fire grounds, we're putting people, or putting the training, or taking the training to the people. I mentioned before, it's part of a blended learning approach. We see people still doing online and immersive, online learning, classroom-based learning, immersive learning, and then going into the fire ground and doing that certification, the final certification. We talk about multisensory, we talk about the environments that we create. We're also starting to capture a lot more biometric performance so we can understand the physiology of the firefighter and how they're trending over time, finding out how comfortable they are in the environments. And our approach into the future will be at a tailor the training to the individual. I'm going to show you a couple of the products themselves now. So FLAIM Trainer is designed, and I'm going to go through this really quickly so that the team in the US can give you a physical demonstration. As I said, nothing beats using it yourself, and I'm sure Linda and Marius can help you out with the demonstration. But we can create everything from the heat. We can heat you up to 100 odd degrees centigrade. We can simulate the respiration of breathing through a self-contained breathing apparatus. We give you the visuals, the audio, the jet or nozzle reaction force of the fire hose itself that's pulling you off your feet if you're not prepared for it. And we see this technology used in so many different ways, from recruitment to retention to officer candidate training. And obviously for me, the big one is reduction of exposure to carcinogens. We have our systems all over the world now in very, very diverse groups of people, all different age groups and demographics. In fact, we're in over 30 countries around the world now, and we've been only in operation for about 4 years. We have a number of different training environments. I'm sure Kevin and the team will run you through some of these soon, ranging from residential structural fires to rural and wildfire to complex environments like tunnels, aviation, mining, shipborne, and some things that we perhaps don't see too often, like electric vehicles. On top of that, we also have an after-action review system that enables an instructor working beside this trainee with a tablet, computer, and iPad to be able to tick off things as they're occurring and lead the trainee through an after-action review process afterwards. That's something that I've found really hard to do on the fire ground because we're wearing gloves. It's hard to write down with a pen and paper, and often you're supervising a team of trainees. In this case, it's a very close connection between the trainer and the student. The other product I'll touch on is our FLAIM Extinguisher for training initial responders. We have a system, very, very simple to set up. One case, virtual reality headset extinguisher that you can take out into the public, you can take to hospitals, you can take to schools, and get people to understand how to use a fire extinguisher in. It's about 30 different training environments at the moment. Packs up into one case, 5 minutes to set up, and putting people into all different types of situations, and see what happens if you put water onto a fat fire. Understand the benefits of the different types of extinguishers and see what happens if you get it wrong. And once again, give you immediate feedback as to your success or lack thereof in this case. Number of different environments. We have different learning outcomes. I've just shown a few industrial ones here, from oil and gas, port scenarios, shipping container fires, in the warehouse, in mining environments and fuel farms. So we can create very complex training environments quite easily using our system as well. I mentioned before, we're in about 30 countries around the world, a number of different large mining companies, oil and gas companies, fire services, a lot of military and defence customers, and then back into the community college and training providers around the world as well. Now, I'm going to give you the 1 minute warning, I think, Kevin, because I think we're just about to start, Sean and Moomin. But I don't want to take up any more of your time talking about what we do. I'd prefer you to see what we do. We've got plenty of testimonials, so more than happy to share some of these comments with any of you that would like some further information through Linda and Marius and the team in South Africa, or from our friends in Dali and in Chicago, or directly from us here in Australia. So thank you very much for your time. What we're going to do now is I'm going to minimize my screen. We're going to get someone in the system, and who's going to be our firefighter today, Kevin?
Moomin is our first victim.
Moomin is our first victim today. So we're going to strap Moomin into the system.
Yep.
And do you want to lead through initially, Kevin, or?
Yeah. So
we'll
we'll pass it over to Sean here in a second to talk through each of the components I think one of the biggest advantages is how the whole FLAIM trainer can fit into 3 small Pelican cases. And we got them here in the office. Here's the smallest one, and there's 2 ones a little bit bigger. But knowing that you can bring this system to the training, as opposed to trainees need to spend hours in the bus going to a training facility, we're now able to bring all this equipment that you'll see in small Pelican cases in the back of your car. So I'll have Sean walk you through all the different components here, and then we'll do a little bit of a play-by-play of what's going on, how each piece works, and then talk you through a couple different scenarios, and really want you to ask Q&A. I saw some questions in the chat. James, if you want to check those out, maybe we can answer those as it's going on. But continue to use as a chance to ask questions of myself, our technical team, as well as James. We'll turn over to Sean now, who's going to talk you through each component and how the different components work.
Thanks, Kevin. Like Kevin said, I'll walk you through the components. As you can see here, we have our main components, which is going to be starting off with the SCBA. That's going to be worn by the user. It's going to, act as the air cell that they would use during a fire training or anything like that. So inside our SCBA is essentially a high-powered gaming computer that runs the software, runs our VR system. Connected right here, Kevin's also holding what is our heat vest. So to increase immersion, this heat vest increases in temperature as you get closer to the fire. It's also directional, so if your back is faced to a fire, the back will also heat up as well. Right here we have our head-mounted display. So this provides the virtual environment for the actual user themselves. Nice high resolution. You also have built-in headphones to increase that immersion too. So, and also movement right here is, if you could show that really quickly. We have the M18 battery. So it's a Milwaukee battery that powers the SCBA. So this provides power, no need to be tethered to a wall with a cable or anything, which is very nice. It keeps the user portable within the environment. Right behind us here, we have our hose reel and nozzle. And on the front of our nozzle, Moomin, if you could hold that up, or our nozzle puck is on the front of our nozzle. That provides tracking. So wherever the trainee may be aiming, this can provide an accurate point of tracking for wherever they're aiming the nozzle. And then back behind him there, we have our hose reel. So this is a haptic hose reel. As he opens that bail to put some water on the fire, it actually pulls back on him to give him some sense of what pressure would feel like when you open that bail. It also acts as a centralized hub. So what's nice about the system is that it is a closed loop system. So no need to hook up to Wi-Fi or internet. You can take this anywhere and it'll run on its own network essentially. Yeah, so that's the hose reel. And then right in the corner here, we have a base station. Let me see if I can zoom in there really quickly. So just going up right there. So we have a base station here, and then on the other side, we also have another base station, which is providing our tracking for our headset and also our hose reel. So those are also powered by M18 batteries. Like I said, very portable, can deploy pretty much anywhere as long as you have a sufficient amount of space. So I think that covers pretty much most of our components. One other thing I didn't mention that you can't see right now, there's an iPad for the instructor to control the scenarios. We can control, what scenarios are selected, the difficulty, set the temperature and pressures as well. But yeah, I think I covered most of it. James, feel free to hop in if I forgot anything. But
great stuff, Sean. Let's get moving in there, and we'll get something running. Hopefully, you can all see the screens that we have on the share. If you look on my screen, it's the one that has Sean's name on it. It's actually the view from the head-mounted display. So you'll be able to see effectively what Moomin is seeing as he performs the demonstration. It certainly doesn't give you the immersion that you would have if you're in it yourself, because it's in 3D. But hopefully you can get an appreciation.
So all right. So when we're thinking and looking at the FLAIM trainer, this is a tool for the trainer to empower your students. We're going to run you through a bunch of different scenarios here, but the idea is that it's okay to fail in the virtual reality environment, where you can push the limits. You can now go from, as you'll see, a dock fire to an electrical car fire, and be able to ask these questions from the trainee or trainer standpoint and not feel like there's any dumb questions. This is an environment where we encourage you to ask questions that maybe are kind of hard to ask on a live fire ground. I'm sure many of you have been on a live fire ground. It's loud and at times maybe kind of a hard environment to really ask questions about how should I approach this fire based on the way that the smoke is coming out. What should I do if there's an electrical car fire next to a propane tank? So these are all the types of environments that we have. And I saw one of the questions in the chat. We have right now we have over about 50 different scenarios. We can create custom scenarios based on your particular risk. So those are all things that are possible and things that VR now allows you to do. Now we've got Moomin all set up. Moomin, you want to take a step forward towards me? One more. Give a little wave to the camera. It's all teed up. So we'll get Moomin the host here. And are you all seeing now Moomin's first person perspective? Is that what's being shared? Go ahead.
Yep, great, Kevin.
Okay.
And as Kevin said before, we want people to make mistakes in these environments. It's fantastic if you make a mistake because it's a safe mistake. We can push reset and we can start our fire again.
So we'll start off. Often one of the first scenes that we do is the docks fire. And a lot of times what we do is we try and orientate the students what it's like to be in VR, because it is not the real world. It is a virtual world. And one of the things is that we're within about a sort of a 10 by 10 foot square radius. So you can only move so much in this 10 by 10 square radius. So that's one of the advantages VR allows you to do, is you can actually move without physically moving by doing teleport. So when we get in this first scene, you'll see that you can actually, you point the nozzle and you aim where you want to go, and allows you to move in the virtual world without actually physically moving. So I'm sure maybe some of you have seen some of these YouTube videos where someone's in VR and accidentally punches their sister in the face or something that is unintended. So you do have to be very careful and make sure that you have a secure environment. And as you can see, he's sort of practicing the point and shoot. So we'll get started with the docks fire here now and get them going in here. And I'm not sure if can they hear what he's hearing? So we're just unmuting this right now.
Or line, Sean, it's one of those two.
So as James said, right now we're replicating heat, we're replicating sound, and replicating the feel as well. But as you can see, Moomin is now pointing and being able to move closer. And as he gets closer to this fire, this is some of the James, if you want to explain some of the fire science dynamics, he's actually now starting to feel the heat here. So this now gives you the acclimation, the feeling of what it's actually like to be close to a fire and feel that heat and make that mental connection of what it's like to be holding a hose and getting close to the fire and feeling that heat.
Great stuff, Kevin. And certainly giving you the understanding that if you get low, you'll get a lot cooler than standing up and having that fire rolling over the top of you, showing you limited visibility due to the smoke that we're creating. If Moomin gives a couple of quick puffs, does a little bit of gas cooling and cools down some of that fire, he can start to drop some of the intensity. Should mention that it is a full variable nozzle. You can control from a jet to a fog. You can change the flow rate of the nozzle itself. So in this environment, we can start to experience and understand what it's like to hold that hose. Moomin, if you give me a little bit more fog pattern, perhaps, if you can, please, we can just show that is fully adjustable everywhere in between. Perhaps I might take this opportunity to answer a few questions I see coming through. We do have the ability to simulate more than one person in the environment. We can put multiple people in. However, we've found due to experience that we find that the student-instructor combination working together, because the instructor is actually watching what you're watching on the TV in the room with the trainee, The student-instructor one-to-one ratio gives you really great learning outcomes as opposed to traditional training where we send 2 people into a burning building or a burning environment. And that's traditionally due to safety. We want someone to be able to rescue someone else if they get entrapped or injured. Couple of questions, one from Claude around the assessment checklist. Yeah, exactly. So on the iPad, we have an assessment that comes up. Obviously on the screen there, a little pop-up will come up telling you how much water you've used, how much air you've used. And if Moomin looks at his chest, you will see that there's an air gauge on his chest as well. I don't think he's actually using it today, but you can actually clip on a mask onto your face and it will start to capture your air usage in real time. So as you work through a scenario, it will tell you how much of a cylinder you're using. But on the iPad tablet, we have to have an after-action review that the assessor can use our after-action review questions or add their own questions and start to go through with the trainee on a simulation by simulation basis and tick off. In the very, very near future, we'll have the ability to push that information onto the web, onto an after-action review page, or to be able to print out a certificate of completion at the end. And that will come along very soon. Now, so there's a few more questions.
Some more questions as well, if you want me to run through them with you, James.
Please do.
We're going to run through the residential kitchen fire as well as we go through more questions. So keep asking questions and we'll show you another scenario and run through that here.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. All right, James, from James Darley, are there any specific regulations, standards, or international laws guiding such virtual research and development?
Sorry, I just dropped out one little bit there. Can you please go again, Linda?
No problem. Are there any specific regulations, standards, or international laws guiding such virtual research and development?
Yeah, great question. I guess we're working with a number of bodies around the world to understand how virtual training plays a place in our training evolutions moving forward. And I guess from my perspective, we've been simulating fires for decades. Ever since we've been training firefighters, we've been lighting A-class or B-class fuels on fire and seeing how they react. Virtual reality certainly can be used for training. There is no rules to say that you can't use it for training or assessment. We're working with organisations like the NFPA, like some of the Australian Fire Science Institutes, some of the UK fire bodies and European fire bodies, to capture the learning outcomes, push them into the after-action review. I see the FLAIM trainer system at the moment a little bit like a fire ground in a box. It enables you to train like you would do using a hot fire training ground, but repeatably, very, very easily. I will point out, sorry, go on.
Is that we want to emphasize that the FLAIM trainer and this training is not meant to replace live fire. Bobby Holland, who's very well known in America, when he's talking, we were talking about with him, he said, it's not about that. It's about getting those reps. It's about being able just to practice before you go to live fire. Because live fire is still going to be something that's part of the firefighter training continuum. With this, we want this to be a piece of the puzzle that allows you to be able to train any day of the year, but even more so at least a couple times a year to prepare you for whenever those live fire trainings actually do happen.
Okay, thanks, Kevin. Another question, James, from Bruce Wong to all panelists. Can tailor-made special environments be made for clients? Can
yeah, very much so.
Scenarios which we can do.
Yeah, very much so. We've developed custom scenarios for people all over the world. We're doing some helicopter training at the moment for people in Europe. We're doing naval environments for people all over the world. Really, it depends. We've got such a broad range of scenarios right now that you might find something off the shelf is fine. But if you need something very, very specific to your industry, we can create those as well.
Okay, fabulous. Keegan Newman, will you be capable of connecting more than one VR, simulating 2 or more 3 firemen entering a building?
Yeah, look, I think so. I touched on it a little bit before. We can put multiple people in. Often it may not be the best training outcome, though, to put multiple people in, because the benefit of a system like this is that you can have that one-on-one instructor-student training. You can do very, very close monitoring of the trainee, as opposed to when you've got multiple people, you're spreading the instructor time between them all. And because you're not burning fuels and having to spend a lot of money on recreating these hot fire training grounds, you can put more people through more often using this kind of technology. Probably just point out at the moment that I think the guys are using foam, so we can simulate lobbing and rolling and throwing foam. And obviously foam is a lot more effective in some sorts of fires than water. One of the challenges we certainly have over here in Australia, and we're starting to see around the world, is we can't use foam for training at all over here at the moment. It's been banned due to PFOS, PFOA contamination and the carcinogens that have been found in foam over the years. So our fire service has banned all use of training foam.
Oh my word.
And one of the other key advantages that we've heard is not only being able to use foam and practice on that, but being able to practice on a wide range of scenarios within a confined space, where if you think about what would be the cost of training on an electrical car fire in a safe environment, it's almost impossible to crash an electric car and just go train on it for training purposes. Or thinking about blowing up a propane tank in a barn. Those are things that are unfortunately the events that maybe happen only once or maybe twice in a career. And it's almost impossible to train on it. And just even thinking, what would the cost be to go from one training scenario to another if you were to do it in the real world? So this now gives you the ability to, as a trainer, put your students in extreme scenario 1, extreme scenario 2, extreme scenario 3, just to get you going and have those conversations. And James Mullins always talks about putting the wet stuff on the red stuff is often the easiest part. But it's everything that goes up leading into a successful fire effort, fire suppression effort. That's the important part. So that's really trying to be able to teach the thinking process here that allows that contextual environment. So it's the most powerful teacher to student experience.
Great point, Kevin. And what we're looking for is things like, what's your radio messaging as you get on scene? What can you see? Have you done an effective 360 or size up? What are your exposures? Is there a rescue involved? How are you going to contain this fire? What suppressant will you use? Have you isolated the gas and electricity to the building before you enter? Our residential environments allow you to switch off the power at the power box and turn the lights off, making it safe for our firefighters. What do you do if there's solar panels on the roof of the house? How does that impact your decision making? As we move forward, if there's potentially hostile people around, or drug labs, or some of the things that we don't see very often, how do you deal with aircraft incidents, accidents? Are we prepared for that? Tunnel fires, as Kevin mentioned, electric vehicle fires. How do you prepare for these things that you may not see very often?
Thanks, James.
Fantastic.
I have another question from Claude. He says, thanks for the session. Does this training session come with an assessment checklist to monitor the student's participation and also see where he or she needs to improve? Yes, Claude, it does. And you can upload all that information on all your students' sessions for the day, on how they've done, what they've utilized, and that can all form part of their portfolio that you wish to add to your training calendars, Here's another question. Sorry. Do we get any certificate or attendance confirmation from Joby T. Raj?
Yeah, look, as I mentioned before, in the future, we'll be able to print out a certificate of attendance that will push out all of the after-action review. It probably answers one of your other questions too. It's actually in our latest release, the ability to capture all of this information. We push out software updates roughly every 3 months. So we send out 4 software updates a year as part of our support and subscription bundle. So you can see in this environment here, we've got a very complex fire environment. We've got a fuel tanker here. Obviously, Moomin's doing a great job isolating the exposure, because obviously that's our biggest risk here. He's still using foam. what he's doing there is cooling down that middle car. He might not be able to get out that fire from that distance, but certainly with foam, it will be a lot more effective. The middle car is actually a Tesla car, so it arcs and sparks, and these fires will build over time. If you don't suppress them early on, they will build, get bigger, grow, and become more complex and more challenging to put out. And with a Tesla fire, like we have here, you can get reignition quite often. So it's all based on the physics-based behavior.
Thank you, James. Another question. Are there any ergonomic concerns wearing VR headsets? If those considered by the existing clients, what solutions were provided, allowing client teams to adapt to the virtual world? It's Jan Darley.
Yeah, look, another great question. And I guess I'm reluctant to use the term virtual reality, to be honest, because people have had terrible experiences with virtual reality when it's poorly done. It might have been in a movie or at a ride at an amusement park or something. And the reason people feel sick in virtual reality is because the frame rates are not what they are meant to be. They don't get a clear, soft, high frame rate experience of being in this virtual environment. We spend an awful lot of time creating these scenarios so that they're high frame rates. And I do apologize if you're not seeing high frame rates on this video. It's purely because of the internet connection sharing the video stream. But we update the frame rates 90 times a second. We're giving you high quality visuals, which means you don't feel sick, which means wearing VR is really much the same as being there in real life. As you're moving around, you're getting down on a knee, it's replicating your motions. Certainly during COVID, we've put a lot of procedures into place to allow people to experience and train using this technology. All of the head-mounted displays, we have a hygiene kit that allows you to use alcohol wipes to clean it down between users. There's a few other technologies you can use as far as paper masks to limit exposures. But hopefully that answers your question, Linda.
Yes, I think that's good. Thank you. And then from Mr. De Kock to everyone, if you have a system error on startup, can you provide a step-by-step check and correction actions to take, please? Since we have updated the system and few WhatsApps between myself and James, I have to basically start up the system with an HDMI cable attached to the SCBA and pair all the devices in the mainframe and then launch the iPad app and start the simulator. If I do not do it in this way, the app does not launch or the system keeps on freezing. The software was updated in and around about May. Secondly, how often must the software be updated on the SCBA and iPad? I'm sure we can assist you with that.
Yeah, I'd love to know more about that. As I mentioned before, we push out a software update every 3 months. So there would certainly be a software update to fix any issues between then and now. Please contact us and we'll get that sorted out overnight. We've got a team either in the Chicago or in Australia here. Usually we solve problems within about 8 hours.
Awesome. Thank you so much. I'm sure that answers the question there. From Anthony Carrera, can you monitor vital signs?
Yeah, great question. And something we're actually adding in a forthcoming release. So I probably can't announce it now, but watch this space. Certainly before the end of the year, we'll be monitoring vital signs like heart rate. At the moment, we're capturing air usage, and in the future, we'll be able to capture much more information, and that will come by way of software updates as we add to the system.
Awesome. And then Claude's asking another question. On the system, can you build your own scenarios according to environment and industry, or does it come standard? It's generic and customized. We can definitely help you with custom-made scenarios.
Yeah, look, and I guess I'll just touch on that. We don't allow people to generate their own environments at the moment because we can get into that situation before where people can get motion sickness and VR sickness if the art isn't done properly. So we like to create all the content and scenarios now. Having said that, we're adding a lot more ability to customize the environment at runtime. So the instructors will be able to do things like insert a structural collapse or change the intensity of the fire in real time, effectively change the environment very, very quickly.
Awesome. Rulo van Staden, can you set, synchronize, and attack the same fire?
They can, yeah. We do have a system to do that. As I mentioned, we do have multiple systems that can connect into FLAIM Trainer. I guess I'm a little bit reluctant to do that because I see such value in that one-on-one instructor-student training continuum. And sort of the second person acting as instructor can also perform the role as the number two in the firefight as well, quite often.
Thank you. From Odette Reed, what about forest fires and fires in rural areas where access is almost non-existent?
Great question. Perhaps, Sean, perhaps we can load up one of the bushfire, wildfire type scenarios now, and we can give you a little bit of a demonstration about an asset protection role that we have. So maybe bushfire ember attack or something like that. But yeah, we do have a number of wildfire and bushfire scenarios as part of what we do, where access is almost non-existent. Obviously, we can monitor your water usage in real time. So if you don't have a lot of water ability, this your use of water is very, very critical for protection. So this is one of our newer scenarios, and it looks a little bit dark on the screen, so I do apologise. But you can walk around this property in the advance of a fire front. So there's a large fire coming. You can see it's quite ominous. There's a glow in the sky. Moomin is working around the environment. He has the ability to point at objects and remove them from the environment. So things like piles of wood and leaves and gas bottles, doormats, cardboard boxes, rubbish, and so forth. He can point at them. You can cut tree limbs off, overhanging the tree. You can remove clothes from the clothesline. You can really walk through this environment, for 2 or 3 minutes before the fire front comes, and then you'll experience ember attack. You'll see that fire front starting to roar, coming towards you. If you're not prepared for it, you will lose the property. So this is an example of, often can be used for public education as well, about how to prepare the public for protecting their properties, but for training firefighters what to do if they've only got a few minutes of time to prevent catastrophic loss of property. So you can see Moomin's working through the environment. He's out and about. He's close to the fire, to the edge of the hillside there. You can see the colour of the environment is changing. The smoke is getting thicker. His visibility is reducing. You might be able to start to see some embers starting to roll in now. This is all physics-based modelling. If those embers land on something that's flammable, they will catch alight. And what Moomin is trying to do is remove some of those ladder fuels between the fire front and the property. So doormats, and as I said, gas bottles and tables and chairs and umbrellas and leaves and things like that. And yeah, certainly I'd probably be going to a little bit more of a fog pattern as well to protect myself from some of that radiant heat. Start to be feeling quite warm now. You'd be thinking about where to position yourself, what your evacuation routes are, what your radio messaging is, whether this property is defensible at all. And you can see that the fire front will come through. He's mopping up some of these spot fires that are starting to come through. This one can take a while, so we may not go through the whole environment. But please, let's go through some more questions, perhaps.
Okay. Mike Emmerich, fire training simulation for underground mining fires, as in training done with proto mines rescue teams. What do you recommend?
Great question. We do a number of mining scenarios at the moment, but most of them are above ground. Closest we have is a tunnel fire for a transport tunnel, but we'd love to work with people in creating some of these environments for underground fires. Basically allowing you to put people in these situations above ground so that they can prepare for an incident that hopefully may never happen in their lifetime.
Okay, well, that's something we can definitely work on then. From Farid Shahzada Khan, how metro rail tunnel fires are extinguished, considering a worst case scenario, and using what equipment?
Great question. We don't have any metro tunnels at the moment, although we do have quite a bit of interest from the rail industry. once again, I'd probably love to have a conversation separately and understand the challenges.
Okay, well, that's something that we can definitely pick up on. Thank you. Etienne Schlechter, thank you. Is the virtual reality product sold under license? So if a business buys this product, do they pay a license fee for the use for a year or monthly? We do have license fees in place. They're annual renewals and constant updates throughout the year that you'll automatically get with the purchase.
Great stuff. Great stuff, Moomin. How's our firefighter going? I see a thumbs up there. It is a bit of a workout, especially because he is holding that fire hose, and it is quite a struggle. And after a while, with the heat and everything turned on, you can get quite sweaty and quite hot, and deserve a rest afterwards.
Oh yeah. The third, fourth one, you definitely need a water break.
That's a shame. He needs a water break.
Maybe we could show one of the farming environments too, perhaps, guys. I saw a question on that one.
And residential and kitchen fires is always an issue for us, especially if we're going to be training youth to try and protect the people in the township.
Yeah, definitely. I think I saw the kitchen fire early on. We can create the neutral plane. We're doing a lot of work at the moment. Our next release will have a lot of work on fire flow path and modeling of air through a building. So if you open a window or break a window, open a door, and it's a windy environment, we can create that fire behavior that replicates the real world. We can see that fire getting pushed into other rooms and things like that as well.
Oh, yeah, no, that's incredible. Here's another question. Forgive me if I don't get your name right. It's Zanjit Kumar. How we can and what easiest media for extinguish fire in seawater pipeline if we have shutdown activity ongoing, distance may be more from confined entry?
Great question. I'm certainly no expert on seawater pipeline fires. But I guess I would suggest that we have a conversation offline about that one, Linda.
Awesome.
Yeah, look, to be honest, we had a big Tesla lithium battery fire locally, first one in the world to me, very, very recently, a couple of weeks ago. Now, that's a great example of something that we're starting to see more prevalent, and we can create those environments quite easily and see how people respond. And it might not necessarily be about putting the fire out. It might be about the command and control structures we want to put in place, the asset protection, and so forth.
Okay, excellent. I think if anybody would like feedback from James and specific customized scenarios, would you mind just sharing your email addresses, please, so that we can actually come back to you? So it's just your email address, your name, and the specific scenario that you would be interested in knowing more about, and we can take it from there. Ian's asking a question. Ian Newton, with the ember fire, is it possible to lay down protective foam blankets on the house, for example?
Yeah, very much so. So our physics models work by looking at moisture content in the fuels. So if you do put a foam blanket down or a water blanket down, it can have an effect and reduce the exposure of the asset.
Thank you. And there's another question from Odette Reed. Can one include sound into the system to make it a bit realistic? There's sound, and it's very realistic.
Yeah, it's a bit hard to pipe it through the internet like we're doing today. But yeah, it can certainly give you sound in the headphones and sound in the TV that the instructor watches as well.
Thank you. Any other questions for James?
We're getting lots of questions coming through.
And I think there's one that you missed earlier on before Ian's question. That was from Rudolph. Any scenarios for offshore oil platforms?
Also a great question. We're working with some partners in South America on some oil platforms at the moment. So while they're not in the library right now, I'm sure we will see more of them in the future as well. And to be honest, we work very closely with a number of industries. We try and understand what our customers want. So if people are asking us for certain scenarios, we'll build them. or we can work on bespoke scenario content creation for certain industries as well.
Yeah, that is one huge consideration, and that's where it becomes very cost effective, as you will end up with updated new scenarios regularly with FLAIM, as opposed to having to go out and just customize perhaps one scenario, which isn't going to take you through every industry type, you know. So
that's right. And look, a lot of the tactics that you use in one industry is completely relevant into other industries as well. And, you know, we have people that work in the naval space that really want to learn how to fight fires in buildings, because they need to be able to protect the houses along the Navy yards and things like that. So, you know, it's a really transferable skill, firefighting, obviously. And once you learn the tactics in certain domains, they can be applied often equally as effectively in other domains.
I think also just a comment is that I think any of the clients will experience a lot of, or see a lot of scenarios out of the 50, I think it's 59 I counted yesterday, out of the 59 scenarios, a very heavy focus on aviation. And I think that goes back, James, to when you had specifically, and this a couple of years ago, you had success in the military side with regards to on the aviation side, and that's why there was so many developments.
Yeah, exactly. So US Air Force is one of our bigger clients. So we create a number of different fires for them. I see one pop up about aircraft internal fire. Yeah, exactly. We do have a fire inside an aircraft. So, you know, it really comes down to people asking us for scenarios. We'll often push them onto the development pipeline. That might come out in the next release in 3 months' time or 6 months' time. It really comes down to how many people are asking us. And sometimes, quite often, we're getting a lot of organisations that are paying for specific scenarios for their need, and we'll push that often to the top of the queue as well. But we've got quite a large development team now building out these environments and these scenarios, and hopefully you can see it doesn't look quite as good over the video, but the environments are very, very realistic and very, the graphics quality is certainly much higher when you're using the system as opposed to transmitting the picture over the internet.
And I saw there was an offer from Mike to say he would love to work with the team on underground fires.
Fantastic, Mike. Looking forward to it. Let's get some information together. And yeah, I've enjoyed some trips down into some underground mines and been a couple of kilometres under the earth, and it's a whole new world down there, isn't it?
Sure, can imagine. Are there any other questions?
Well, fantastic. Maybe we could run the rural levy scenario if you do have one more scenario in your Moomin. And Kevin, any feedback from your end as well?
No, and we don't necessarily need to do it, but we do have the extinguisher system as well, which is basically like a scaled down version of the flame trainer, but particularly focused on teaching the pass technique for fire extinguisher operations. If you've seen the flame trainer, you can get an idea what the flame extinguisher looks like. We can hold it up here, but I think, James, you want to run through that last scenario, and anything after that we can kind of hold up the extinguisher and talk through that a little bit.
Yeah, definitely. And I think it would be great if we could send out a couple of the videos to the people participating in the webinar too.
Actually, James, Sean was just telling me we need to do a battery swap in the flame trainer. So
okay, now might be a great time to show the extinguisher then, Kevin, if you have one handy.
Yes, we do.
And I have another question for you, James. Can you create evacuation drills where staff have to leave the premises from Claude?
Yeah, look, we do have that in our extinguisher scenario, actually, and that's about choosing the right way to escape the environment. It might be a fire warden procedure telling people to set off the fire alarm and escape. And sometimes you're exactly right, Claude. Sometimes the best course of action is to leave, close the door and leave. And we build that into our scenarios as well. We have the ability to set off the fire alarms. In our fire extinguisher, we have the ability to use a fire blanket. We can, choose from, I think there's 7 or 8 different types of fire extinguishers, ranging from dry chemical powder to water to wet chemical to CO2 to halon on aircraft. So many different types of extinguishers.
And just something that I found as we were opening up the different cases for practical hygiene purposes, there's a few options we have. One is the clean box. It basically looks like a microwave that is a UVC disinfectant for your VR headset. Some people may think it's overkill, but it is something that is kind of like the top of the line. What we do sort of intermediary is use some kind of standard off-the-shelf type wipes using the headsets, as well as these paper masks. So these come standard with every kit, just to kind of ensure safe operations in between different students using the systems. And then you can also get replacement foam inner headset liner for the headset. So if you have high operations or if one of that pieces kind of wears down, you can replace those. But most of our customers are just using a combination of these two.
Fantastic, Kevin. I just saw one come through from Evan around putting a sensor on a dummy to recreate rescue recovery. It's exactly in the pipeline as well. We'd like to add a lot of different technology in the future, things like simulating thermal cameras, gas detectors, and casualties as well as a big one. So being able to drag a casualty out of a virtual environment will certainly make the experience a lot more visceral as well.
Here, we're now going to switch to the FLAIM Extinguisher really quick. As opposed to those kind of have a high-powered gaming computer inside the SCBA, we're using the computing power inside of this Pico Neo headset, which then connects to these two different controllers here. You get the one controller back here, one in the front. So here you're actually pulling a physical pin and then need to push it down to activate the extinguisher. And here you got the controller up front, which is activating and actually sensing where you're aiming. So we are replicating the pull, aim, shoot, sweep, and really ingraining that muscle memory into this whole process. So I'm going to put Mooman in here.
I think Mooman looks a bit hot from his flame trainer experience, Kevin.
Yeah, we're gonna have to go down the proper cool down process after this. Let's send him home early.
So what we're doing now is, Mooman, the first time you turn the system on, he's just going to connect to the receiver so that we can see what he can see. And this usually takes about 30 seconds or so. So we'll see if there's any questions. I know we're just about up on our time, so I'd certainly like to thank any of you that do have to jump off. Fantastic. So we've got the extinguisher up now. Can we pin that one? Move pin. Oh. Perfect. So Mooman is in the environment now. This is a student-driven approach. He can choose a category of fire type. He might go into, what's he choosing? Residential. He can walk around quite a large environment. We can see we're in a kitchen fire here, residential environment. We're going to, we always put water on fires, right? And that's what I like to let people have a go of, putting water on a fat fire, because it's very, very hard to simulate this in any other way. And we can see what happens, that it's really ignited that fire. It will pop up straight away and tell you you've used the wrong suppressant, show you the smoke and the fire increase. Now, if we go back into the same scenario and choose a different extinguisher, we've got a wet chemical in this case, which is probably the best extinguisher. He's going to squeeze the handle, move in a sweeping motion, put that fire out very, very easily, and it will pop up straight away and tell you that you've used a very small percentage of the extinguisher and put the fire out successfully.
And James, so maybe kind of even the step one in the extinguisher, as students come in, one of the advantages here is, as an instructor, putting your students through these initial two steps of learning what are the different types of extinguishers. So here are all the different types of common extinguishers around the world. And you can look at, you know, how is foam used, when is it best to use water, and talk to your students through what are the different extinguishers and how they are used. And then if you want to go to the technique, Sean or Mooman, And here is the whole pass technique aligned with the OSHA standards here in America of first with P is pull the pin, talk through that. A is aim at the base of the fire. Next is squeeze the handle. And then of course, the last one is pass and sweep at the bottom. So those 4 basic steps that we're just ingraining into the student's head, along with being able to choose which extinguisher to use. We've had a couple customers talk about how not only are they using this how to teach students how to fight a fire, it's also teaching students how to not fight a fire and when to actually run away. Because there are certain situations where, yes, we all become a firefighter when a fire is in front of us and we have an extinguisher, but there are times when it's just too dangerous and really you're better off just running because you and the extinguisher aren't going to actually won't accomplish much and you're putting yourself at risk.
A couple of good questions, Kevin, on languages. So FLAIM Trainer now supports, I think it's 21 different languages. Very, very easy for us to add different or new languages. We can certainly work with customers on that quite easily. FLAIM Extinguisher will have multiple language support, certainly before the end of the year.
Excellent.
And high-rise question on high-rise process equipment. We do have a high-rise scenario. I'd love to unpack that a little bit more and understand what training is required. But I guess that's what we do at FLAIM with our partners at DALI and SkillsTrain is about understanding their requirements, really understanding whether the technology is right for the training and coming up with the best training iteration and the best scenarios for the particular training outcome. It's not trying to fit technology where technology doesn't fit. It's about starting at the learning outcomes you're trying to achieve and working backwards from there. So I guess we're probably out of time, Linda, but I'd certainly like to thank everyone for coming along today. It's been a great turnout and I really appreciate our support from our friends in South Africa and certainly in North America as well.
I wish we had a little bit longer. Thank you so much for your time, James. It was much appreciated, Kevin and team. It was actually great to give our South African market a bit of an opportunity to explore, you know, the technology and as Professor of Robotics for Deakin University, thank you for making a difference to the world.
Thank you all. And you're in good hands with Marius and Linda. So make sure to reach out to them. And from the DALI team, we are here to help and support you in any way we can. And of course, you got James based in Australia as well, who's able to help with any technical development questions. And we appreciate your time and thanks for the opportunity.
Thank you so much. I wish we had an opportunity to ask our South African panel their experience and open that to questions and answers. But unfortunately, next time we'll know we need 2 hours.
I think what we'll do, we'll schedule another one, Linda. Because we've got more on the robotics side of, with the classroom in a box perhaps. But James, also from my side, I just want to thank you for always being there at the most crazy hours whenever I need to WhatsApp call and ask your advice, your dedication to the FLAIM product and to the industry itself. So thank you very much. And Kevin, also your team and in the US side, thank you very much for the support that we enjoy here in Africa.
Thank you so much. Thanks, Marius. Thanks, Kevin. And I agree, James. I don't know when you ever sleep.
No, we're very passionate about what we do. Thank you all.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Guys.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Take care.